We are exactly 2 races into the 2026 season, and the Formula One playbook hasn't just been thrown out. It has been literally set on fire.
Oh, absolutely. It's ashes at this point.
Right. I mean, the grid is already engulfed in technical espionage. We've got cars that are physically torturing their own drivers on the track, and there is this, like, shadowy boardroom coup underway right now that could permanently kill the independent F1 team.
It is absolute madness out there.
It really is. And just as a quick note for you listening, this segment is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events. Today, our mission here on DRS Zone is to cut straight through the paddock rumors.
Because there are a lot of them right now.
So many. We've compiled this massive stack of sources, technical telemetry analyses, insider paddock leaks, deep dive financial reports. We are getting into the hidden forces deciding this championship before we even touch down for the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka.
The paddock is, well, it's an absolute pressure cooker right now.
Yeah.
We are looking at a scenario where the engineering battles have just completely outpaced the rule book. And meanwhile, the financial battles are threatening to rewrite the entire power structure of the sport.
Which is exactly why we need to unpack this. Because you listening right now, you know how this sport works. You know the margins are in the millimeters, the milliseconds.
Right.
But today, we're going to look at how Mercedes is actively bending the laws of physics right in front of the FIA. Plus, the terrifying, and I mean terrifying, biological reality of driving the new Aston Martin AMR 206.
That car is a nightmare.
A total nightmare. And then we'll get into the franchise cartelization that Toto Wolff is quietly orchestrating behind closed doors.
It's a fascinating triad, really. What's happening on the track with the aerodynamics is inextricably linked to the mechanical failures in the garages.
Right.
Which in turn opens the door for these massive corporate power plays we're seeing.
So let's start with the most glaring anomaly on the grid right now. Mercedes. I mean, they are absolutely dominating.
Untouchable.
George Russell takes a commanding win in Australia, and the rookie, Kimi Antonelli, takes the top step in China. 2 races, 2 victories.
And they don't just look fast in clean air.
No.
Their corner entry stability looks completely alien compared to the rest of the field.
Alien is exactly the right word. And according to Ferrari, it's highly suspicious.
Oh, Ferrari is furious.
Yeah, following the race in China, they formally demanded clarification from the FIA's Nicolas Tombazis. They're pointing a very large accusatory finger directly at the active aerodynamics on the front wing of the Mercedes W17.
Yeah, and this is where it gets incredibly technical, but so important.
Break it down for us.
So, Rule C.3.0 dictates how the active aero flaps on the front wing operate. The rule strictly states that the transition between the open position and the closed position cannot exceed 400 milliseconds.
Right, so less than half a second.
Exactly. When a driver hits the brakes, that flap is supposed to snap shut, open to closed, a binary immediate movement.
Like a hard mechanical stop, right?
Yes, and that stop is validated by the FIA's Standardized Electronic Control Unit, the ECU.
Oh, yeah.
The sensors pull that actuator to ensure the 400 millisecond window is respected. Every other team on the grid, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, their wings operate like a light switch. Click, and it's shut.
But then you watch the onboard footage of Russell and Antonelli.
It's wild.
F1 Twitter has been pulling this apart frame by agonizing frame. The Mercedes wing does not snap shut.
Not at all.
It does this bizarre, like, 2-step dance. It closes partially, hits an intermediate state, pauses, and then slowly, gradually creeps down into its final closed position as they get deeper into the braking zone.
And the entire movement is visibly taking longer than 400 milliseconds.
Visibly. Anyone can see it.
And it is entirely unique to the W17. No other car on the grid exhibits this delayed double transition movement.
Let me jump in with an analogy here just to help you visualize this if you're listening. Yeah. Think about opening a parachute.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. If you yank it open all at once, you get violently jerked. It's a massive shock to the system. But if it opens gradually, the descent is smooth. So my question is, if the rule is a hard 400 milliseconds and the FIA has a standard ECU constantly pulling that sensor.
How are they getting away with it?
Exactly. How on earth are they passing the mandatory tests? I mean, my immediate thought is that Mercedes has to be spoofing that electronic handshake.
That is the leading theory tearing through the paddock right now.
They must have engineered an actuator that sends the closed ping to the telemetry at like 399 milliseconds, right? Satisfying the sensor, while the physical carbon fiber flap is still moving on a delayed mechanical linkage.
Yeah, and that's why Ferrari is absolutely livid. The speculation is that the actuator executes an initial rapid internal stroke.
Just a twitch.
Right, just a twitch. That initial twitch triggers the sensor's endpoint parameter. The sensor registers a pass, basically packs its bags, and tells the FIA telemetry, hey, movement complete.
Wow. Meanwhile, Mercedes essentially has a ghost wing, operating completely outside the rulebook parameters for the next half second.
Unseen by the telemetry, but highly visible to anyone watching the onboard camera.
The engineering audacity is staggering. But let's talk about the real-world application, the so what, for the fans listening.
Yeah, the performance game.
Because F1 fans, you guys understand weight transfer. You brake from 200 miles per hour, the nose dives, the rear gets light, the dynamic roll center shifts wildly.
It's a violent physical event.
Right. So if I'm thinking about this in terms of aerodynamic platform stability, it's like carrying a tray full of water glasses while sprinting.
Okay, I see where you're going.
If you stop dead, the water sloshes violently forward and spills everywhere. But if you shift your hips, lean back, and bleed off the deceleration smoothly, the water stays perfectly level.
That tray of water is the perfect way to visualize the center of pressure.
So Mercedes is essentially using this delayed wing closure to shift the car's aerodynamic hips, aren't they?
Exactly. By keeping that front wing partially open for a fraction of a second longer during the most violent phase of deceleration, Mercedes is deliberately starving the front of the car of maximum downforce.
While maintaining drag that pushes the rear of the car down into the asphalt.
Bingo! Which keeps the rear tire slip angles perfectly in the optimal window. They aren't locking up.
Oh, so Russell and Antonelli can just aggressively trail brake all the way to the apex without the rear end trying to overtake the front.
It gives them a massive advantage on corner entry. It allows them to brake later, rotate the car faster, and get on the throttle earlier. I mean, it is an aerodynamic masterpiece.
Assuming it survives the inevitable FIA investigation at Suzuka.
Which is a big assumption right now.
Huge. And just to add gasoline to the fire, Lewis Hamilton, who is obviously now wearing red at Ferrari, casually dropped a massive hint during the post-race press conference in China.
That was quite the moment.
He implied that Mercedes is also running a, quote, party mode engine setting in qualifying. A super aggressive, synchronized engine map that bypasses the current restrictions on deployment limits.
Look, Hamilton knows the architecture of that Mercedes power unit better than anyone alive.
Exactly.
If he is planting those seeds in the media, it's a calculated move to force the FIA's hand. The scrutiny on Mercedes heading into Japan is going to be microscopic.
So Mercedes is using sensors to manipulate physics to their advantage.
Beautifully, I might add.
But if we look down the pit lane at Aston Martin, physics is violently rejecting the engineering and is actively fighting back. We have to talk about the absolute catastrophe of the AMR 26.
The situation at Aston Martin has completely transcended a mere performance deficit.
It's a crisis.
It is a fundamental engineering crisis. They are sitting on 0 points, tied at the bottom of the standings with Cadillac.
And the internal frustration is toxic. There's this leaked radio broadcast from Lance Stroll during the China weekend where he calls the car, and I quote, the biggest shit I've driven in my fucking life.
It's
Ouch. Coming from Stroll, who, let's be honest, drove some incredibly compromised Williams cars early in his career, that is a damning indictment.
It really is.
But the true horror story is what happened to Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, retiring after 33 laps in China. And not because of a terminal engine failure.
No.
But because of physical incapacitation.
He had to stop because the vibrations coming through the chassis from the Honda power unit were so intense that he suffered temporary nerve numbness.
He literally lost all feeling in his hands and feet.
Let that sink in for a second if you're listening.
Huh?
An F1 driver is pulling 5 lateral Gs through turn 1 at Shanghai, making microscopic steering inputs, and he literally cannot feel the steering wheel or the brake pedal.
Adrian Newey has actually gone on record calling the chassis dynamics outright dangerous.
Dangerous.
Because we are talking about severe harmonic resonance. The natural frequency of the Honda internal combustion engine is somehow perfectly matching the resonant frequency of the Aston Martin carbon fiber tub. It's amplifying the vibration through the driver's seat and the steering column.
It's like striking a tuning fork and pressing it against a hollow wooden box, right? The sound and vibration just explode.
That's exactly what's happening.
But Honda's project leader, Shintaro Orihara, came out and said they fixed the battery vibrations that caused issues in testing.
Yeah, he said that. But the root cause, the internal combustion engine itself, is still tearing the car apart.
And this is where the crisis just compounds itself. Orihara admitted that not only is the engine vibrating violently, but its actual performance metrics are terrible.
Specifically, the MGUK. The kinetic motor generator unit is just failing to harvest adequate energy under braking.
Which brings us to Suzuka, Japan, Honda's home race.
Oh boy.
Suzuka is a massive high-speed figure eight. You have the S's in Sector 1, 130R. These are corners where you are barely touching the brakes.
Which means no harvesting.
Right. If your MGUK regeneration is inefficient, you are going to be severely clipping. You'll run out of electrical deployment halfway down the straights.
Orihara is basically bracing the Japanese fans for a brutal, embarrassing weekend.
The lack of deployment is a massive issue. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The vibration is the existential threat to the team's entire 2026 campaign.
Because it completely paralyzes their development.
Exactly. How does a team like Aston Martin even begin to fix a car when the root issue isn't just a bad wing, but an engine that is fundamentally vibrating the chassis to pieces?
You can't.
I mean, if I'm an aerodynamicist at Aston Martin, I rely on load cells and pressure taps to validate my wind tunnel data. But if the physical floor of the car is buzzing like a smartphone on a metal table, the boundary layer of airflow is going to detach.
You can't tune a front wing if the chassis is having a mechanical seizure on the straights.
Right. Your sensors are just reading white noise.
That is the exact nightmare they are in.
Yeah.
Aerodynamic performance relies on a stable platform. If the platform is oscillating by several millimeters 50 times a second, the airflow separates unpredictably.
And downforce is just lost in sudden snapping moments.
Exactly. The correlation between the wind tunnel, the CFD simulators, and the actual track data drops to zero. They are engineering in the dark until Honda smooths out that power unit.
And Aston Martin isn't the only team in a tailspin.
Oh, fair.
Max Verstappen is off to his worst start in years.
Yeah.
He's openly comparing his Red Bull's completely disconnected steering balance to driving in Mario Kart.
Which is quite the visual.
And then McLaren suffered a humiliating double DNF in China before the race even officially started, ironically due to electrical failures in their Mercedes customer engines.
Which certainly raises some very pointed eyebrows in the paddock regarding customer engine parity.
You think?
Especially when the factory Mercedes team is cruising to effortless 1-2 finishes.
It really makes you wonder if those electrical anomalies are truly random.
It does.
But look, if we step back from the track telemetry for a second, we need to look at the financial telemetry. Because while Aston Martin and Red Bull are scrambling to fix their physical cars, the real power plays are happening in the boardrooms.
The shadow wars.
Yes. The battle for the actual soul and ownership of Formula One.
This is where the sport transcends engineering and enters the realm of high-stakes global monopoly.
Let's look at Alpine. On the track, they are actually overperforming.
Surprisingly well, yeah.
Pierre Gasly dragged that car to a solid 6th in China, and Franco Colapinto is consistently in the points. The chassis has genuine pace, but the massive earthquake behind the scenes is that the Renault Group is actively trying to sell off a 24% equity stake in the Alpine F1 team.
The fact that they are selling isn't the shock, though.
No. It's the identity of the entities fiercely bidding for that 24% stake that has the rest of the grid on edge.
You have two massive conglomerates circling. One is BYD.
The Chinese electric vehicle giant who previously explored buying into Aston Martin.
Right. But the second buyer, shockingly confirmed by Flavio Briatore himself, is Mercedes.
Wow.
Specifically, an investment group spearheaded by Toto Wolff.
Let's connect this to the bigger picture here. The implications of Toto Wolff purchasing a quarter of Alpine are staggering.
It represents a fundamental threat to the Concord Agreement and the entire concept of the independent constructor.
This isn't just financial diversification. Let's look at Wolff's historical portfolio. He is the Tune principal, CEO, and one-third owner of the Mercedes factory team.
He has deep historical financial ties to Williams.
He remains a significant shareholder in Aston Martin, and Mercedes currently supplies the power units, the gearboxes, and the rear suspensions to McLaren, Williams, and Aston Martin.
He is already deeply embedded in the operational infrastructure of 4 out of the 10 teams on the grid.
So what does this all mean for you as a fan? If Wolff and Mercedes buy 24% of Alpine, a historic independent manufacturer that builds its own engines, this ceases to be an investment.
It's a takeover.
This is cartelization. He is buying a voting block, isn't he?
That is the absolute crux of the issue. Formula One governance relies on the F1 Commission, which is a 30-vote structure.
Okay, break the math down.
You have 10 votes for the teams, 10 for the FIA, and 10 for Formula One management. Major rule changes require a supermajority.
So if Toto Wolff effectively controls the voting alignment of Mercedes, Williams, Aston Martin, McLaren through engine leverage, and now a 24% boardroom veto power at Alpine.
He controls 5 of the 10 team votes.
He holds an absolute veto block over the entire sport.
Exactly. You don't make strategic or technical decisions that actively hurt your 24% equity partner. If Mercedes buys in, Alpine loses its distinct, independent identity.
The inevitable result is shared technology paths, aligned political voting, and the transformation of a proud French constructor into a subordinate B team within the Mercedes network.
It frames an incredibly uncomfortable reality for anyone tuning in on a Sunday.
It really does. Because we tune in to watch 10 independent teams fighting tooth and nail, pushing engineering to the absolute limit to find a tenth of a second.
But what we might actually be watching is 3 massive corporate conglomerates, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, just playing a rigged game of chess using 10 cars as the pieces.
It's creeping monopolization. The fear among the midfield is that this creates a permanently closed shop.
True underdog stories become mathematically and politically impossible.
Like a privateer team finding a loophole and shocking the establishment.
Forget about it. Not when the top teams control the voting rights, the engine supply, and the actual equity of their rivals.
It kills the DNA of Formula One. I mean, we are barely into the 2026 season, and the tension is quite literally shaking the sport apart.
We have Mercedes engineering a brilliant, highly suspect, sensor-blinding, active front wing that grants them total aerodynamic dominance.
We have Aston Martin and Red Bull fielding cars that are catastrophically disconnected, with Honda engines physically torturing the drivers through harmonic resonance.
And humming quietly beneath all of this track action are corporate monopolies actively threatening to buy up the grid's independence.
It is a stark reminder that the fiercest and most consequential battles in Formula One rarely happen on the asphalt.
They happen in the wind tunnels, buried in the millions of lines of telemetry data and locked away in the legal contracts of the Concord Agreement.
And this raises an important question, a final provocative thought that I want you to mull over as we head into the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka.
Lay it on them.
We've spent time analyzing how Mercedes is successfully spoofing an FIA sensor to hide a slow-closing wing right on the nose of the car, in broad daylight, in front of millions of cameras.
Yeah.
If a team is capable of manipulating telemetry to blind a sensor on a highly visible aerodynamic element, what other invisible automated tricks are these teams quietly running deep inside the suspension kinematics or the floor elasticity?
What else is happening right in front of our eyes on television, totally undetected by the rulebook?
If the sensors only see what the teams want them to see, the actual limits of what these cars are doing might be completely unknown to the regulators.
It changes how you watch every single corner.
It absolutely does. Listen, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the chaotic F1 2026 season here on DRS Zone. Make sure you are following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for real-time telemetry breakdowns and paddock updates as the Suzuka weekend unfolds. Keep your eyes open because in this sport, the truth is rarely what the sensors tell you. We'll catch you next time.